Smite 2 was just announced while I was in Australia. I was there, meeting and hanging out with friends. I literally met them through Smite. I've been friends with them for 5 years, maybe even more, and we watched this announcement trailer together. We quickly noticed some major flaws and picked it apart logically and emotionally. Overall, through different lenses on the matter to form a proper opinion. Now, here I am to tell you what the hell is going on with the community outrage and shed some light on everyone's confusion around why this is so bad for them. First, a small bit of context. Smite has been around for 10 years. It's changed styles a few times, directions a lot, and the big one is the community has changed a bunch. However, there's few that can argue these points on why they enjoyed the game, despite it actually being the biggest pile of garbage I've had the pleasure of enjoying this last while. Give me back my microtransaction. Give me back my microtransactions seems like a very weird thing to cry for. I mean, we didn't want them, and now we're mad? What people love about Smite is there's almost 130 gods in the game, so there's definitely a big roster to fuck around with. They love all the funny skins and accompanying voice lines with the VGS system, the pinging and talking system that's in the game. It changes to the various voice actors. And now the main thing Smite players have wanted from the game. We've wanted Hi-Rez to give us a playable, non-buggy mess where every shield isn't a different instance of code. I mean, seriously, none of them are the same. Some stack, some cancel out, and some outright remove. It's like this for every god, item, and ability of damage. It's fucked up. What's scaring the community is the fact it wasn't asked for, nor was it informed to the player base. They just wanted the current game to work and run, not look or feel better. So you can absolutely say they're getting more than they bargained for, right? And while I'll agree to that, under certain conditions, that's yet to be seen, so there's reason for doubt. The big ticket item change is Unreal Engine 3 to 5. So is the engine better? Both yes and no. For starters, Smite codes has been an ever-growing string of spaghetti for 10 years. Nothing is consistent. And so in starting fresh in a new engine, one can only pray they'll be able to fix what was wrong. But it is a new engine, and that likely means more or at least different problems. And the only feeling I have towards this is that there has to be hope. That these can be overcome. And that's a big ask when we didn't ask for this. It's kind of like asking for blind trust or faith. It's a bit difficult, especially today. We needed the game to be fixed, but quite honestly, we assumed they'd kill the game and or we'd stop playing before then. So the feeling is a mix of confusion, surprise, and yeah, honestly, hope. The announcement focuses on how it looks, and as I've said, that's not what the community is looking for, like at all. I mean, look at Smite. No one's saying it's a 10, or it's beautiful, but somehow, some way, we're not being superficial about our game. Never really have. So with that advertising, the biggest fear is still, is it going to work though? The jump in engine means the UI is going to compete with other third-person MOBAs releasing now and later. Because they appear quite similar, as the looking new and shiny doesn't exactly mean you have better parts. To be specific, have a look at any of those games' hero, god selectors when joining a match. The resemblance is uncanny. Now to be hypocritical. This is actually lining up to be a really good thing. It is also a bad idea. Let me explain. Smite is lining up to be the cross-platform MOBA with its massive existing roster and somewhat intact player base, albeit questionably sane, limited, and, well, people. So the reason making it similar is a bad idea is because it's now trying to be a competitor. It may not win that battle. Okay, straight up, it won't. Smite's unique in the way that it has known pantheons beating the shit out of each other, giving art a form to exist, to display these myths, in which every skin can be an interpretation or a funny haha on the gods and for the community. But this came with a style, albeit whack, throughout its career, but it was still there. This smooth kind of pastel look reminds me of Borderlands. If it huffed a bunch of crystals and got thunder cunted into a wall, but hear me out. It grows on you. Sure, it's a fungus, but I still grew it. With that, the point is that it will try to compete instead of just being its own thing with a style. It'll grab hyper textures and try to be too realistic instead of dynamic art, random borders, odd shading, questionable angles, and sometimes fucking gorgeous designs. Smite's rage is about the skins and the money put into it. But I'm going to be a guiding light illuminating this and explain why. Because yes, it is microtransaction, license, whatever the fuck. But for a long time, Smite's been more like a current event where you log on and your mate tells you, have you checked out the new Afro skin? It's so fucking good. And then you all collectively fold because she's wearing nothing and they just allowed you to unlock and uncap the Y-axis. So now you can look out at the sky for that fucking Thor ult while looking at everyone's ass. And yes, that includes Huncules' derriere too. But that's where this transitions into the Smite's real gameplay, as again, you log in and you're like, oh shit, they released new skins, and there's an unheard skin in a tux. It looks okay. And then you get into game. You start loading up the match, and you see he's on your team with the new skin, and you all giggle because you say, what a waste of money, knowing full well you've spent twice that on a skin made in 480p with 2 whole textures. But then you load in, and the VGS starts playing, and oh my, is it beautiful. The ability voice lines start to play, and you just hear this. The monument for my opulence! And everyone collectively pisses their pants laughing, as we praise the voice actors for their service. You see, it doesn't just stop there. Smite is like Soundboard the game, where everyone on the spectrum has a reason to learn the overly complicated, yet beautifully detailed, you rock. Cancel that. Sometimes you sit there after a penta or accidentally giving them one, and you spam, I'm the greatest. No, yes, okay, wait, cancel that. And I get that might not mean much to other people, and it may sound silly out of context, but it becomes thoroughly enjoyable. See, pretty much all skins have their own voice lines that you unlock by having the God's voice pack, and then equipping whatever specific skin's voice lines you want when you own them. Skins have existed as an audio file, rent-free in the player's head, for 10 years of playing them, game after game, and interchanging them like Lego, getting everyone accustomed to them. So it's not actually about the poorly made skins from 8 years ago, rather the experience that came with it. Because that's the player base, is those loyal fuckers with a real soft spot for a bad game and an even worse soundboard. Now, all that is actually a good thing. It's what we've enjoyed for so long, getting on and seeing a new skin, saying whether it's good or bad or even worse, that it looks like sludge, with all the glorious low-res stickers attached to it, and laughing about how the company is called high-res, yet produces some no-res at all. But then we are there to thank them when they finally fix something that's taken 4 years, and slander them when they change something we liked that again took them 4 years. Ask any Smite player who they'll ban in any game mode under any applied condition, and they'll have someone to say instantly. Ready? Go. Unlimited cooldowns. Unlimited god pick. Finally, unlimited mana. I'll bet Arpark got set a fucklot in there. Now that's just a sidebar, but it serves as an example of the point. That being, it's in and about those experiences that has made it Smite. That's what they know it as. A broken game, broken gods, and broken skins, with all the funny stories accompanied with those silly voice lines. It's actually got very little to do with the shit skin, but rather everything else around it. Now for the next venture. The announcement trailer revealed to us that they have 10 playable gods, down from the 130 roster. Now I'm going to be pretty particular and I'm going to trigger warning before getting into it. Yes, high res, take your time and get the gods in correctly. Don't spaghetti code. Don't have every bleed, blight, and shield a different instance that has unreliable features. Like some work, some don't, and some don't give a fuck. Yes, it takes time. I understand that. And so take as much time as you need to actually get them into the game. Don't bare bones it and have minimal gods, voices, and VGS, and all that accompanying silly stuff, because that's not Smite otherwise. If it just releases, as we see it in the announcement, then everyone in any community will be skeptical as fuck around the statement pre-alpha footage, as it's often instead what gets put into the game months later, with very little done. If that's the case, we'll be looking at another 5th generation Unreal MOBA with the same UI, tiny rosters, and like all the others, very little to actually do. Now, what's happening here? First, I'll say what we want. A game that feels good and runs well. We don't care about the visuals that much at all. Styles over graphics any day. Now, that's just for the engine to deal with. Next is the roster. The bigger the roster, the more counterplay and diversity in terms of gameplay, as it usually relates to new or different mechanics, as opposed to everyone just having skill shots and damage numbers. It also means less of a chance to mirror match. I'll elaborate. Fighting the same character every match and or the same god as you sucks, because abilities work in certain ways, and some players and gods hate fighting those things in those ways, and it becomes unfun and sometimes unplayable. With a roster of 10, for example, since that's what we've been shown so far, I know there'll be more, but even if the number still ends up being low, this point still stands, and is a genuine concern for its launch. Since it's a MOBA and it's a 5v5, even in its mostly other weird game modes, there's 5 different roles, which means we have 2 whole gods for each role, at least for their main purpose, which is balancing depending. This is fucked for 2 reasons. First is mirror match, as oftentimes it no longer becomes a battle of the match or skill, but rather a mental one, as players psych themselves out as they want to be better than the enemy of the same god, and sometimes your ego gets in the way. Maybe it makes you think you should be better. Sometimes it says you're worse. Either way, you're no longer really playing the game Smite or the MOBA. Rather, a 1v1 that's really a 2v0 because you fuck yourself with every single ability they land and you miss. Even though it's very nitpicky, it just makes for a boring match and doesn't remain fun. The second is with 2 gods to choose from to lane. There's likely one that's better, or a counterpick to the other, meaning the mirror matching is even more likely, definitely greater than 50%, which gets very boring very quick, as there's little to learn or overcome, like in knowing a 130 god roster and knowing their god better than them, or vice versa, and getting to experience, oh shit, I shouldn't do this with them when they do that. Instead, you're relying on a fantastic balancing system, which Hi-Rez isn't exactly known for. This also means you may be waiting months to a year before you can play your favorite god or main in Smite. And that just kind of sucks. You'd rather play the old one, and now there's a bigger divide in the player base, which I'll get into later. Moving on, we have legacy gems and skin purchases, the scorn of all the debate and hate. Now, I know a lot of this is actually good. I know that, and I still hate this. So we have legacy gems. All the gems you earned and bought in Smite 1 will become legacy gems for Smite 2 accounts to use for 50% off most purchases in-game. Okay. So if they're for all new awesome skins, wards, icons, effects, whatever you have, that's awesome. Now, if it is most of the old re-release skins and some or none of the new ones, that is a fat middle finger to the old players. And I get you have to have money coming in, as it's a free-to-play game, but still, I really wish it was a bit more than 50% off. 2 reasons. Well, you could have got nothing. And I really hate getting stuck in these mindsets of that's just life and how things go, because it really doesn't have to be like that. And doesn't spark consumer confidence, especially because most could mean anything. It's an unknown variable, and we have no clue what that can get us. Plus, the reward for spending money is a currency we cannot use in its entirety unless you spend more money. Provided the game was fantastic and amazing, and they reward us, yeah, I'll be encouraged to spend more and utilize this. However, there would be some conditions needed to be met before then. Because after all, it was us buying the good, the bad, and the ugly skins that got us here today. Now here's where I'll deviate and go a little bit back on my statement. We do not want all 300 years worth of work of skins back. Fuck no. We do not want that at all. You know how many suck? Are recolors, poor textures, and low res? Yeah, nah, over 1,000 skins, only maybe 1 per god would be worth it at all, and some gods don't even have that. As the community exists, I feel if they are to bring back skins, the community should be involved, and make it just a nice, slow process, and give the people who already had those ones 100% off, because that's both rewarding and consumer confidence. Like, you have a favorite fish and chip shop. They throw in extra shit just because you're a loyal paying customer. It feels good to do and accept. No one really loses there. It gives incentive to switch from Smite 1 to 2, which is absolutely what they want. And honestly, we do too. A promise to move to something better yet still the same with a thank you for being there for it all would and hopefully will be a great feeling. Sure, it may not feel good in the pockets, but there's a new pulse. We will see new players and a returning 5-year-old skin that hasn't been re-released in those 5 years. And now there it is. Wow, I see why they liked it. I have to get it. It's awesome. Not for the old player. If they have to see a skin they bought 5 years ago on a game that now doesn't really exist because the new one came out, that skin's gonna look really bitter in the store. And they just wanted the game not to be buggy, which would suck all the more if the new one is as well. They want to, and other people view this as a new, standalone game, and while that's just not exactly true, it's not a new style, new direction, different gods, it's just Smite in a different engine called Smite 2. They've advertised the legacy gems and the current Smite rewards and quests to gain stuff for the new one. It's not, oh, I'll just play the old one. They want you to come to the new one, which is fair enough. But that means it's not a sequel or a new game. It's a continuation. Because it's not a new story or perspective. And so the community to ask for their stuff back is fair fucking enough. And so, despite the anger, everyone really only wants a compromise. And that's not spending more money. For the last year, Smite sales for gems and skins has been a pain to watch. So many bad skins and shit bundles that now don't matter. Color Forge is a mess with low-res textures and bad optional colors. And now they advertise, spend more on Smite 1 as it will carry over into Smite 2 with double the gems on Founders Packs. I get needing the money to make the game as best as it can be. But if the old players are not promised a better game and paid for their due diligence, then it's only going to come across as greed.
Wake up!
The players of Smite 1 weren't aware of this coming Smite 2. We didn't work together on this, and so there's been no communication or trust built that this is what we will want. despite them encouraging us that it will be. We don't have that evidence. There's been no mention of bugs and things we've laughed at on YouTube and community posts addressed, like the funny nod to, yes, with the new engines, those valves will stop blowing and leading to horrific bugs. The notice for how the stuff will come to the next game only came about once they had marketable stuff. And that kind of sucks, because for the last year, people have half or fully wasted their money because there was no heads up to say a year ago that the new one will be coming, or once they knew they'd see it through and make the game, then we could have knowingly spent in hopes of a better experience. And then maybe we could have had some input into it, as opposed to our money used and then no thank you for getting us to this point. The point of their anger is they now have stuff off the tail end of updates that are now useless because of something new that is just the same game. They wouldn't be mad if the game slowly died. It would be disappointing, sure, but not the same emotion. And that's what's important, is how the community is feeling. Of course, they're blowing up and saying one thing. They're not really thinking. They are just a bit emotional and reacting. I can't say I blame them. Now, I fully understand how it sounds. It's illogical as, yes, it's a microtransaction. You didn't have to buy it, and you don't actually own the thing. And you can pick this to shreds with logic. But that's not being fair to the human in us. Say I get given a plush toy, so it's free. And I spend some time and some money giving it a cool cape, some glasses, and really just cosplay the shit out of it. And then you take it away from me and tell me you can buy that version of it back on this different toy, or even the same one, just updated to the latest aesthetic of the manufacturer. You'd be heartbroken. I mean, you loved that thing, enjoyed it, spent time with it. Those feelings are not logic, and you can't put the two together because we all know a kid and their toy share a bond. And if the kid eventually wants to let it go, with some time, that's okay. Anyway, if I had to take a kid's toy, I'd feel sad, and so hopefully that adds some connection to the item. Otherwise, I'll continue like this. You buy a game and or an item, and it shuts down. You'll now be sad about it, but you'll eventually reminisce. The new Smite existing, that can't really happen because the game still does exist in a weird different form, and the old one maybe will or maybe won't still exist due to player base. Piggybacking off that, we have the two games, Smite 1 and Smite 2. If one still exists, people have to make a choice, and that divides the player base and separates the community and loading times and servers and all that awful stuff. Personally, from the Oceania server and all of the games I play, this is a headache. And the next bit is a whole lot more of one. Like, now I have to decide what's better, what my friends are playing, what's actually fun. I won't commit to Smite 2 for any real length of time unless there's at least more than 50% of the roster. And that the VGS and voice skins eventually flow in, because that's what makes it Smite. And I won't be playing it at all if they resell me old skins for more price, be that markup or inflation, because yes, I may have spent $12 then for a group of skins, and now I can't buy one for that amount. And I don't like that. I don't think anyone does. Now yes, I'm being a big baby, but two of those things are absolutely doable, and actually should be done. So no, I'm not just a baby, I'm at least a toddler. With the mods, so maybe I'm just some kid. We didn't ask for Smite 2. We weren't informed on it. So now, what we had and enjoyed is in jeopardy. It may seem like having both available will be fine, but it'll make all the difference. And one shall stand, and one shall fall. I get that the announcement should be a hip hip hooray, and a 3 cheers, but that's not how the gaming world goes nowadays. And so the biggest concern is if what made Smite, Smite, will come to Smite 2. Be it the gods and how silly or powerful they feel to play your fight. The allure of mythology surrounding why I want to play a god with that design, with a skin, or not. And whether the community experience will come to it within where we make our own fun. When bored, like turning into soundboards. I know the hate is great and the focus seems on something so small, but that's because the words aren't really being put out there because quite honestly, this is all about feeling, and some people aren't good at identifying or expressing them in a constructible manner. And besides, we've grown attached to our milk, and we want to enjoy it, not spill it. And unfortunately, we're a bit emotional, and if it falls, we will cry. We know we can get another, or find something else, but we've been riding this wave a while now, with what made it enjoyable, and the next one might not be the same high. So, we're scared. It may be time to say goodbye. Smite 2 is a good call. It's a chance to give a second life and a breath of fresh air and fix all the wrongs. The community just wants the stuff that made it fun and hilarious to be there. And we really do wish we knew about it, so we could be excited too. But that's just a feeling, and even that feels sad to say now.